Okay, I'm going to start. Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to part 11 of 12 of the CIWEM Breakfast webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about working professionally, ethically, and complying with relevant codes of conduct. My name's Iain Stevenson. I work for Thames Water in the asset management department on the clean water side. My background is hydraulic modelling, but currently I look at strategic growth in the network for Thames Water. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so just what we're going to speak about today. Introduce the competency, look at some of the key questions that CIWEM posed to us, some example responses, some activities, and cross-references for other accreditations. So this is the D competencies, and it's about communication and professional ethics. And as we said before, we haven't covered D1 because it's quite a personal competency, but it's also a fairly short competency. So just going to cover it very briefly. D1 is the ability to communicate in English. That would cover chairing meetings, completing and circulating minutes, writing documents, specifications, technical reports, doing presentations, delivering training. Just a little note there that I only used 130 words for this competency because writing your competencies is actually an example of communicating in English, and your professional interview will also be an example of communicating in English. So it's quite a short competency, and it's why we haven't covered it today. But we are covering D2, which is work professionally, ethically, and comply with relevant codes of conduct. So this is the question that's posed to you for this competency. You will need to demonstrate that you understand CIWEM, your organisations, and other relevant codes of conduct, and promote them to your colleagues, ensure that you comply with the relevant standards, and promoting professionalism. And it gives you some pointers. You will need to demonstrate how you adhere to all relevant legislation and regulatory frameworks, e.g. employment legislation. Demonstrate that you think and act professionally and impartially. You're aware of the limits of your own knowledge, expertise, and competency, and seek advice and guidance when required. You're aware of the CIWEM Code of Ethics and strive to deliver the most appropriate solutions to all stakeholders. So there is a link at the bottom there. These slides will be available on the website, which lays out the ethics and codes of conduct, but we will run through them in a couple of slides time. So the key questions: what codes apply to you and how do you comply? How do you deal with stakeholders? Have you ever needed to give an unpopular message? How do you promote compliance with codes of conduct and professional working? How do you take into account stakeholder requirements? When you need to supplement your knowledge, seeking expert advice, and do you know the limits of your delegated responsibilities? So these are some of the things that can be covered, and we'll take a look at these in the examples. So yeah, sorry to just be reading through these, but we will just to make you aware of what the codes of conduct are. So the first 6 are about environmental behaviour. So take account of the interaction between nature, man-made, and social culture environment, and promote enhancement where practical. Understand that ecosystems provide an essential contribution to human well-being and apply this to their work. Promote the use of integrated solutions and management of the wider environment. Take all reasonable steps to avoid causing environmental damage, degradation, or nuisance. Avoid knowing or deliberately over-exploiting natural resources. Take into consideration the needs of the community. There are 6 more, and they are on professional behaviour. So 7 is act honestly, objectively, impartially, and maintain confidentiality when required to do so. Accept responsibility for their personal decisions and actions. Never act illegally, fraudulently, deceitfully, or dishonestly. Avoid conflict of interest and disclose any that may arise. Advance their learning and competency to encourage others to do the same. Recognise the limits of their competence, and uphold the reputation of CIWEM and avoid damaging the reputation of any of its members. There's a further bylaw about professional conduct. As you can see here, it's quite similar to what's previously. So uphold and enhance dignity and standing and reputation of the institution and profession. Exercise their professional skills and judgment to the best of their ability and discharge their professional responsibilities with integrity. Have due regard to the public interest, protect and enhancement of the environment in the discharge of their duties. Shall not maliciously or recklessly injure or attempt to injure, whether directly or indirectly, the professional reputation of a member. So those things, they are the code of ethics. They can be found on the website, so do go back and take a look through them. Okay, on to the examples. So, first example, I recognise the importance of acting with integrity, caring for the environment, giving health and safety the highest priority. I comply with the following legislation: environmental legislation, employment legislation, Health and Safety at Work Act. So this is just quite a nice opening quote. To introduce for this competency. The second one, within my professional sphere, I'm a diligent worker who day to day goes above and beyond to ensure that the technical outputs I deliver are robust, seeing through error corrections as and when I identify them, and conducting myself in an honest, ethical and professional manner, maintaining clear and transparent communication with customers, colleagues, the supply chain and the wider community. Again, a nice opening paragraph to explain how they work. I'm always upfront with clients and stakeholders about limitations. Noticing of these is vital to solving issues early in the project, as any assumptions that are made could have a detrimental effects in the future. I work to add value to my responses and solutions and provide robust data to back them up whilst meeting engineering standards. So this one's a bit more of an engineering example about, as it says, being upfront with clients, trying to minimize assumptions and backing things up with data. Another example, working as a consultant, I'm often asked to review for a range of clients and a range of purposes. One day I may be working on behalf of the regulator, and the next I may be working on behalf of a developer. In such situations, it's important to exercise my professional skills and judgment to the best of my ability and discharge my professional responsibilities with integrity, objectivity, and independence. That's a really good example about what this competence is about. Like I said, it's about professional ethics. And quite a number of people. You have a number of stakeholders maybe looking to you for answers. In this case, it was a developer and a regulator. It could be different departments within your company. Somebody's looking for an answer quickly or looking for a specific answer, but this is suggesting that you have to work with integrity to give the right answer and meeting that code of ethics for CIWEM. Similarly, in my work, undertaking assessments and investigations on behalf of developers, there is often pressure on the part of developers to maximize the return on their site. Ethically and professionally, my response is to conduct my investigation to the best of my ability to provide the client with the most accurate assessment of the risk on their site. So yeah, I should have looked down and seen this, but yeah, Again, kind of competing interests, if you want to call it that, um, where people are looking for a particular answer, but as part of your job, you have to give them the right answer and the answer that's correct. I act with integrity and objectivity on all projects, taking practical steps to avoid causing environmental damage. So scheme feasibility, degradation, customer standards, or nuisance impact on the community. I seek further knowledge from colleagues that have experience in different fields. I'm also eager to speak to manufacturers to gain details about operational and technical specifications. So there was a couple of points in those code of ethics about, and the questions that were posed about, do you know your limitations and how do you go about finding that information? And this example covers that. So they seek knowledge from colleagues around them, and then also speak to manufacturers to gain details about operational and technical specifications. I understand and comply fully with the company's legal responsibilities as well as core business values and ethical principles. My behaviour at work aligns with the honesty and ethical behaviour policy, which sets out the company's commitment to conducting all aspects of their business in an honest, ethical and transparent way. So one of those questions did pose, what is your company's standing on this? Most companies will have a ethical behaviour policy, so go and take a look at that. And this again, just a couple of sentences to explain. My company has it, and that I work to meet this company policy as well. Last example, I believe. Furthermore, both at home, during everyday life, and at work, when engaged in professional activities, I conduct myself with an ethical and sustainable way. I ensure that my actions and behaviour do not adversely impact society or the environment. In that respect, I adhere to the set of 12 principles outlined in CIWEM's Professional Code of Ethics and Professional Ethics and Code of Conduct. I have completed honesty and ethical behaviour training whilst at work, and this has ensured that I understand how to protect myself from risk from bribery and knowing where to declare goods and hospitality. So again, similar to the last one, and a nice way of saying it's not just about work, it's also about being at home in my everyday life and how you go about that. Being ethical and sustainable, again, brings in companies' code of conduct or ethical behaviour, and that training has been done, which is quite helpful. And yes, gone even deeper in that, saying about like risk of bribery and declaring gifts and hospitality, which is about ethics. So today and this week, discuss with your peers what codes and legislation and regulatory frameworks apply to you. How do you comply? So these can be, as it said, employment legislation, health and safety legislation. There is another one I can't think of right now. We'll go back to it. How do you think and act professionally and impartially? Are you aware of your limits to your knowledge, expertise and competence, and how do you seek guidance when that happens? How do you promote compliance with the codes of conduct and professional working? I won't go through these, but this is cross-reference to the other accreditations, the Chartered Environmentalist, Chartered Engineer and Chartered Scientists. Yeah, there's CIWEM ones at the top, and then relevant codes of conduct, influencing and negotiating codes of conduct, promoting behaviour and cultural change, liaising with others, understanding environmental ethics, and again, codes of conduct and how you practice them. So tips we always go through. When completing your competencies, always write in the first person. So we're only interested in what you have done, not what your team has done. Be honest about your contribution to the project. When you come to your professional interview, you will be quizzed on aspects of your what you've written. It will go a bit deeper, so please be honest about what your contribution to the project. You can say you were part of a bigger team. Understand why you're doing a particular task. What was the bigger picture? I think I said previously, I'm very water based and not so environmental based, and what I had to work on was growing that environmental side of what I was looking at and how parts of the water business applied to the environment. So that's where I had to put in most of my work. Be concise. I said you've only got 4,000 words, I think. So yeah, you've only got 300 or 400 words a competency. It's not a great deal, so be concise. When it comes to your interview, remember what you've written, and don't limit yourself to your current employment or current employer or paid employment. As I said before, for those who are close to completing their competencies and applying for chartership status, if you do need any help, there is a paid course, fast track to membership, available through CIWEM. It's a day where you'll be able to speak to experienced tutors about your application, competencies, and help prepare your submission and look forward to your professional interview. If you're a little bit further back, maybe just starting your journey or in the middle or want some help, there is the CIWEM Mentor platform. There's a link here where both mentors, where you can find mentors if you're struggling, and also if you know someone with more experience or who already is chartered and they may want to be a mentee, please let them know about this so they can add their name and we can help each other find mentors and mentees. So yeah, next week is the final week. So E1, demonstrating continual professional development, CPD. And you will be with Katie next week. So I'll just pop back to the task for this week, and yeah, and in responding about the fast track to chartership and the mentor and mentee things, there is a membership team at CIWEM. So if you do have any questions about anything, Jane's just put it in a chat bar that you can email membership@ciwem.org with any questions. Okay, we've got 2 questions. How do most people approach writing the competencies, assuming writing each competency out then answer rather than essay style?
Should I start on this one, Ian? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I certainly wouldn't use any of your word count on restating the competency. I think if you can get to it quite succinctly, the way we used to do it was that you'd fill in a form and each competency would be replied in an individual box, but now it is more of a long submission. But I definitely wouldn't. It might be for your own benefit to write it out and fill it in the answer, your submission. But I think certainly I wouldn't use that towards the word count. So I think more essay style, but feel free to chop and change between different competencies and just have them paragraph after paragraph after paragraph focusing on each one. And also, I would suggest that it doesn't need to be full prose. You know, the use of bullet points or different styles of writing as well can be very effective in communicating aspects that contribute to your competency. If a list is suitable, then don't feel like you have to write it out in beautiful full sentences.
Yeah, one of those examples previously was mine, and part of it was bullet pointed to make it a little bit simpler. I didn't have to link all the different aspects of legislation and things like that. I just kind of bullet pointed them down. This has probably been asked before, but where you can help find a sponsor. We just went through. There is I will pop back to it. There is a CIWEM mentor platform now, so please visit that. Jack, can you add a little bit more about this?
Yes, it's a really good platform. It's only been live for about a month now, but there's already a good number of mentors on there from all across the world, really. Range of different disciplines that CIWEM supports, or people who are interested in CIWEM. So do have a look at that. You do need a CIWEM membership number, but that could be any grade from graduate, student, environmental partner, anything like that. And it's a fantastic resource, not just for supporting you through CIWEM, but for your chartered application, but also all sorts of other professional challenges that we might face. So even if you are chartered, do have a look at it. If you're not chartered yet, but are way off, then do have a look for that. And there are some great mentors there, and it's very, very easy to use. Great format for that. If you aren't able to use that, or don't feel like you've got a good match on there, they do contact you, the membership team, and they will try and put you in contact with people. But equally, just if you're on LinkedIn, search for CIWEM, and you'll find sort of the number of your colleagues and contacts in your network that are members of CIWEM, and have a think about how you could approach any of those. Because my experience is most people are very flattered by being asked to mentor anyone, and providing that you can sort of they've got time and that you can support you in the right way, then they're probably able to do so.
Do ask around your company as well. Like you might be new to that company and maybe not know anybody, but yeah, do ask around. When I joined Thames Water, I was my line manager put me in touch with my mentor, which was really useful. So I didn't know them before, but yeah, there are some companies might hold a little database about who can be mentors for people. And there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but if you can't find a CIWEM, someone who's chartered with CIWEM, I think, can you use like ICE and other?
Yeah, so in terms of signing off as a sponsor, there's certainly, I think, testing now, I think you need two sponsors or two people to sign off your competency. And the ideal is that one of those is CIWEM. If both of them are CIWEM members, then that's fantastic. But if, say, your line manager wasn't a member of CIWEM, but they had another professional body or experience, then they would know your work better. So they could be your sort of your main sponsor, but then ideally a second would be a member of CIWEM, but they might not be as familiar with your work as another person is. So if you've got a mentor in everyday life, and that could be a line manager or someone else in your organisation, or just who you've come to use as a mentor, and they know your work really well, then don't not use them as your mentor for this just because they're not familiar with CIWEM. But at the same time, recognise that they might not be as familiar with, for instance, CIWEM's code of ethics or CIWEM's competencies, but they are very familiar with you. So it might be that it's entirely appropriate for them to read your report and say, yeah, I know you've done all that. That's definitely stuff that you've done. and put their name to it.
Another question, do you think it's important to be a member before applying for chartership? Personally, I do. One of the competencies is your contribution to CIWEM. I think that's quite difficult to answer if you're haven't been a member. There are different levels of membership. So I think someone said this the other day as well. I was a graduate member for quite a long time. And I just left it. I left it at that level and then went for chartership status. So personally, I think it's helpful. It supports the institution. The lower levels of membership are a lower price. Companies normally cover the cost of one professional subscription. Some companies do too. So personally, I'd say yes.
I think certainly now that we've got the non-chartered member, CIWEM, it used to be that people would be graduate members for a long time, and then whilst they're pursuing their Chartered Water Environmental Manager application or their full CIWEM application. Now that the non-chartered member is available, it's a very relatively painless application, very simple, and I'd really recommend people do consider applying for that, just to give them a bit more direction to what they're doing, and a lot of companies will, as I say, reimburse you for that. Not all do. Some people only reimburse at chartership level, but increasingly companies are seeing the value of non-chartered membership as well. And you do get sort of access to a range of materials. You get the sort of the journals and the magazine through the post as well. So it's good to have that to support your wider environmental knowledge. But it's not essential. You can directly apply. You can directly apply for fellow if you want. But it does, I think, as Iain said, speak to your commitment to CIWEM, the fact that you've put yourself out there and been involved at different levels through your career. It's also for me, I started my employer at the time didn't reimburse for CIWEM or environmental partner, so I was paying, and you might be paying student or graduate membership out of your own pocket. Having that annual invoice coming in, knowing that if I put my finger out and I get my chartership, then that will be reimbursed. There's also just a little extra silver lining there.
I've got two more questions. I'll go to the bottom one first. It was actually the first question that came in. In regards to codes of conduct, whether CIWEM or my employer, do I need to be able to recite them, or to what level should you be expected to understand the COP? You don't need to be able to recite them. But they're all they're all quite clear. It's all about being ethical and not causing damage to the environment, and that's put in quite a few ways. So no, you won't be asked to recite them. I think it's just proving that you know what they are, and by answering this competency well, that you've read them and how you apply to them day to day. So you won't need to recite them, just be really aware of them, and just a general background, like I said, professional ethics, and don't damage, and not causing damage to the environment as part of your work is
you are signing up to that code of conduct in applying for being a member of CIWEM. So it is important that you do understand them. And I'd say demonstrating your understanding is much more important than being able to recite them word for word. I would perhaps expect at an interview someone to be able to draw on a couple of examples of them. So perhaps if we were talking about code of ethics, being able to pick out maybe how they manage conflicts of interest, or how they interact and work with people who don't have the same professional knowledge, so members of the public or such. But you're not going to be quizzed on what are the 9 points on this or what are the 12 points on that. But being able to name a couple of them and and show that you understand them as a whole is very important, because as I say, it's basically a contract that you're signing up to.
Do you want to just pick up the last one, Jack?
Yeah. So again, so the last question is, can my line manager sign even if not chartered with CIWEM or any other institution? As long as your line manager is, a professional of professional standing, it's my understanding that they can sign and sponsor you, but they might just want to put in a little brief description of their, qualifications for that position, and why they're best placed. But it would be good to have your second sponsor as a member of CIWEM, and ideally a chartered member of CIWEM there. But yeah, as I say, if your line manager or someone else in your organisation knows your work best and is able to verify what you've stated in your application, then they are, in my opinion, the most appropriate person to be your main sponsor, even if they're not a member of CIWEM. But do look for that as someone else to co-sign effectively. I'll probably get told off by membership teams that one. That might not be right, but I'm pretty sure that
like
certainly used to be the case.
There's just something coming in the chat. Yeah, lots of people do have these questions, so they're perfectly valid questions. It's probably questions I've had through the years. So yeah, do ask us, do speak to the membership team about these things if you do have questions. Yeah, it's just past 9 o'clock, so yeah, thank you everyone for attending, and yeah, see you next week for the final week on CPD. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about that. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks, Ian. Cheers.